Hey, Cameron here with Seabutters Tech, and we are looking at the Bigscreen Beyond again. And this is after receiving a new unit because when I did my face scan, it gave me back a 63, so that's what I ordered. And turns out that that's just a little too big for me. And that was really causing some issues in terms of my focus that I was getting with the Bigscreen Beyond. And you may notice I have some interesting strap attached to my Bigscreen Beyond, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. It's a 3D printed part, not my design, someone else's from the community, but it is really cool, and I will talk about that a little bit later in the video. But for now, let's talk about my experience with the Bigscreen Beyond now getting the right IPD. First off, let's take a look at what I was seeing, and I want to just visually show you what that looks like. So here the red represents my pupils, and the black with the spheres and lenses in here is basically the Bigscreen Beyond unit. And you can see what it made the view look like. So you can see my pupils were too small for the headset, which meant that the inside view was right in the blurry spot of the lenses. Now, if you shifted, those lenses to the right or to the left, it would just make one eye really, really bad and one clear, or the other eye clear and the other one really, really bad. And in the middle, it was like kind of okay, but it gave me this center section that I was having to look through, the blurriness on either of these two sides. And so that's kind of what I was noticing. So the HMD IPD was too wide for my eyeballs. So let's look at what it would look like if you corrected that. So once you correct that, you can see that now your view, you get a lot less blurriness on the edges. That center blurriness is gone because your pupils are lined up, and then the center of your vision, you're always kind of looking, your two pupils kind of almost point at each other when you're focusing. And so when you're looking inward at something close in front of your face, when your eyes turn in, you'd still be in the clear spot as they turned in a little bit. And then that center blurriness went away. And that's what I saw. My view now looks like this. Now, if you went the other way, what would that look like? Like if your eyes were too wide for the headset lenses, you would be moving your pupils too far to the sides. And what that would result in is in really a small clear field of view that would look not too good, right? So if you kind of toggle between these, you can kind of see that, too close together, you're going to get artifacts like this. Center looks good. Too far apart, you're going to lose field of view, and it's going to look quite blurry to you. So yeah, that's exactly what I saw on mine. And with the new, I went 2 steps down to 61 IPD. I measured about 61.5 when I used calipers on my eyes, and that fixed things right up. So I was surprised, how much easier it was to focus and get into the sweet spot now with the right IPD, but also I lost the feeling of being like cross-eyed and not being able to focus on things in front of me. The sweet spot still is pretty tight, but again, with this 3D printed custom cushion, it really is easy to kind of almost feel where you need to put it on your face, because it molds right to your face, so it will kind of naturally kind of just shift into place, which means placing it is really easy. That doesn't mean it can't shift, or depending on what you're doing or leaning or whatever, it could cause the ability for your sweet spot to kind of get shifted out. I still find myself adjusting the headset more than I would like, but it is quite good. And I have now been able to use this for hours and hours, and it's really nice. So that fixed the majority of my issues. This second unit, the fan noise is much less than the original in general. So that's a huge thing. My first unit, I was just like, what is going on? I adjusted it, kind of tweaked it, and then the fan noise diminished. But this one is like even quieter. So I don't know exactly what that was, but But yeah, if the fan is set right and is working properly, it's not an issue. And one thing to watch out for is if you are using their little application, you can actually adjust the fan speed in there. And sometimes when you turn it on after it being off, it's not actually using your setting. So you have to kind of change the fan speed again to get it to quiet down. But and that's, I mean, if you go up into the higher brightnesses, it gets a lot louder. But in general, using 100% or below, total non-issue. The fan is totally fine. So I want to pass that information on. So let's talk about the field of view. So now that I have the right headset, I feel like I can make a better judgment on the field of view of this device. And I measured somewhere around 97, and it just depends at which angle of your eyes you're looking at. But very, like they say, like Quest 2-ish is a good representation of this device. But I want to say one thing: a lot of people who are using the Bigscreen Beyond are noticing that they're just like, why does the field of view feel bigger than it actually is? And I was thinking about that, and I finally realized today as I was playing around with it what that probably is. And what that is those dark blacks on the OLED screen. Those are doing us favors with the field of view, because if you're playing Beat Saber and you're looking down that pipeline at the notes, the edges in Beat Saber in general are pretty dark. I mean, they're pitch black in a lot of areas. And when you're truly black, you can't see the gasket. You don't know where the gasket ends and the screen begins when you're in a dark environment. It is literally pitch black. So when I wear this and I'm playing Beat Saber, I don't feel the field of view at all. In fact, I probably couldn't tell when I'm in the middle of a game. I could not tell you, it could be 100% field of view. I wouldn't know the difference because A, I'm not focusing on the edges, but B, I couldn't see the edges even if I was looking for them. And so in dark environments, the field of view of the Bigscreen Beyond really comes alive, and it feels like a bigger field of view than it would normally. Like normally if you have a LCD headset, you're going to see the grays, and you're going to constantly see that you're in a little scuba thing. But when your blacks are completely black, you don't see the little scuba edges. You just see your scene. And I think that's why in dark environments, the field of view feels much bigger on the Bigscreen Beyond than it actually is. Now, if you're in a bright area, of course, the Bigscreen Beyond, you can obviously see that it's a little bit closed in, especially if you're used to something like the Quest Pro, or, I mean, the Quest 3 even has a much larger FOV, or even the Pico 4. If you're using one of those headsets and you move to Bigscreen Beyond, it's going to feel a little smaller in brighter environments. But like I say, in dark, it's going to feel bigger, actually. So that's my take on the FOV. I mean, I still wish it was larger, obviously. You always need more FOV. In fact, I hate the games that when you move or jump and then they shrink down your FOV. It's like, come on. I mean, obviously you can turn those off usually, but I don't like that. I spent a lot of time playing Climby, and it made me sick, so sick when I first started VR. But I stuck with it and just kind of developed those VR legs, and now it's like, I could play Portal and like jump through portals upside down. It's not going to bother me. I've developed that ability. So my VR legs, so to say. Now let's talk the resolution, because again, we've talked about how great the blacks are on the OLED, but the colors are very vibrant too. And the contrast between the dark blacks and then the bright colors, man, it just looks better than anything else out there that I've used. OLED is definitely king when it comes to VR picture quality. And there are two things that I'll say about it. That I don't know, that there's a little bit of persistence. There's a little bit of persistence going on. If you keep your brightness at 100%, if you don't want to go to 101% because then your fan noise is going to pick up quite a bit, which I don't like. But if you're at 100%, the persistence, and what that is like, it's like you're looking at something bright, right, in your scene, and then you shift your head. Like, it takes a minute for the brightness to die down. So what it ends up looking like, it ends up looking like the millisecond gray to gray response time on a monitor. It looks like there's a little bit of blurring, like in terms of like response time on like an LCD. It's kind of like that, but not exactly. It's a different thing than that. But the thing is the second you adjust your brightness down to about 85%, for me, the persistence issues, I don't notice them anymore. I can turn my head quickly and things look sharp. You bump it down to, 75, and like I can't see the persistence anymore. So somewhere between 75 to 85 is where I'm finding that I don't see persistence. It's still fairly bright, and that's where I'm kind of keeping things, is right in that zone. It's not a big issue at all. In fact, most people, I would guess, wouldn't even notice it. I don't know. Maybe they would. But I notice it, but it's not a big deal because you turn the brightness down to about 80%, like I'm saying, and then you're good. That you got rid of that issue. So yeah, let's talk about the resolution in general, because I talked a little bit about the 75 hertz, which gets you that 2560 by 2560 per eye, and the 90 hertz, which gets you the 1920 by 1920 upscale to 2560 by 2560. And I said, yeah, I could probably tell in the blind sight test. That doesn't make sense, but in a blind test, I could tell the difference. And using it more, putting several good hours in this machine at both 90 and 75, I definitely can tell the difference between the two resolutions. And here's the thing, in a lot of games it doesn't matter. Some games you can't even go above 75 hertz anyways, just because of what's going on the screen. VR is really intensive, so that's not even an issue. And in a lot of games it's not an issue at all. And in games where you do want the fast-paced frames per second, like Beat Saber or something like that, you're not super concerned about visual fidelity, so you can keep it at that 90 hertz and it's not that big a deal. And then there's some games like Half-Life Alyx where, sometimes I'm like, okay, it's 75, it looks super clear. The writing on the wall I can see from way across the room, and it looks great. It looks almost like real life. Like it's crazy, like that we're at this point where it's like things almost look like real life in this thing, because the resolution is so good. You can barely make out that they're pixels. You still can if you have good eyes. If you don't have good eyes, I doubt you could. But yeah, when you jump down to 90 hertz, you are getting that 1920 by 1920 upscaled, and it's not as sharp. It's not quite as sharp. And that's not that big like I'm saying, it's not that big a deal, because you're still getting, the very good color representation, the very dark OLED blacks, the bright, vibrant colors. So resolution's not the end all be all, but I do find myself erring on the side of being at 75 hertz, unless it's something that I need the game mechanic to have better motion resolution. And so, this is nothing that, Bigscreen did what they had to do with the technology that's available. They're offering the best fidelity you could get at the resolutions that you're using. So you can't. I'm not trying to launch this as a criticism at Bigscreen at all. I'm just saying, when you have to bump down to the 90 hertz's, like a little bit lesser fidelity resolution, it kind of sucks, because at that point, just in terms of the metric of resolution, it's like you may as well, I don't want to say this, but you may as well be on your Quest 3. It's because that, to me, it's a value proposition. Do we want to be on the Quest 3 or do we want to be on the Bigscreen Beyond? And the resolution you're seeing at 75 hertz, it's like, yes, this is absolutely worth it. At the resolution difference you're seeing at the 90 hertz, it's like, yeah, I could take it or leave it, but it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, I am opting to play at 75 hertz, quite a bit more, just for that extra clarity. Doing desktop work, you definitely want on that 75 hertz. You can wear this and use your desktop, and it's actually really, really cool. So yeah, the value proposition. So everyone said this: if you already have a valve index, if you already have base stations, if your valve index breaks, should you go for the $1,000 Bigscreen Beyond or a $500 HMD replacement? I think it's a no-brainer to grab the Bigscreen Beyond, just because it's pretty amazing, and I as much as I love the valve index, and I think it's a very comfortable headset, and literally if they just bumped the resolution in it, I'd probably buy it again, just because it does so well in every aspect out there other than its resolution. But yeah, I think it's definitely a worthy upgrade. But some of the thing you have to be considered is like, do you want that Quest 3, which is $500, and does the standalone? It's wireless. It does quite a few things, and I think that's really the competition. I mean, it's not the competition for Bigscreen Beyond, but in practicality, when someone's going out to buy a headset and they've heard about different things, that's who they are competing against these days. And the only area that I don't like, that I feel the big screen falls behind the Quest 3, is in the lenses, because the Quest 3 lenses, I mean, it's like looking through a mirror. It's just so great. There's very little eye strain when looking through the Quest 3. When you look into something like this, it is micro OLED, and it's very small. Like, your eyes have to be so close, and the second it gets a smidge out of line, or even if you are centered, the edges of your vision are just a little bit differently focused than the center of your vision. That causes a little bit of eye strain, and that's to me, that's the drawback that I'm struggling with most right now with my Bigscreen Beyond, versus something like Quest Pro or Quest 3, is there's a bit more eye strain, and I'm feeling it a little bit. Now I want to give it more time and let my eyes adjust to it, but but I can already tell after having spent at least 5-6 hours in this thing that yeah, the eye strain component is definitely elevated on this device. So yeah, let me talk about this head strap. Those are my thoughts on the Bigscreen Beyond, but I want to get to this head strap because this thing is just wild, and it is actually amazing. Like, if you've heard how good the Valve Index sounds, these are literally the same type of speaker. It might even be the same model speaker as the Valve Index. And this is a 3D printed project from someone on the Bigscreen Beyond Discord. His name is John Jensen, and he designed this. And props to him, because this is a 3D printed part, but things that it does really well are it prints easily. It's been designed that it can be printed without supports, which is really important for getting consistency. Otherwise, you have to, finish the parts, and it's a little more difficult. But also integrating other materials into the 3D printed stuff. Like, he has room for epoxy and wool straps. So this actually is the same setup as the Reverb G2, where it has kind of these wool straps, and it will actually, see that flex? Isn't that cool? So it's the same setup as the Reverb G2 in terms of clamping that on your head. And let me put this on so you can see how cool this thing is. It uses a DAC on the back, and this connects directly into the Bigscreen Beyond itself, so there's no extra cables. It gets louder than the Valve Index does, and it's super light. It's still, even with adding all of these things to the tiny Bigscreen Beyond, it's still it's still the lightest headset I've ever used, even with adding all this, because it's, Bigscreen Beyond is like 8 times smaller than the next closest HMD, pretty much, at least the mainstream ones. But yeah, this just feels great. It helps keep it right in place once you have it tuned in. And so, with this thing on, it is a really cool setup, and the audio, I don't have to miss my index at all with this thing. And it is just, I mean, it's just cool. I'm really digging it. Obviously, I need to, tune it up a little bit, maybe hide some of these cables, strap them down, use some electrical tape or something like that to get it settled in. But it is wild, and I really like it as an audio solution. Now, I hope Bigscreen Beyond is going to have their own strap, and I hope, and those of you waiting for it, like just seeing how well this thing does, and this is like, I made this like in one night. Like I 3D printed it, put the components together. This is kind of a Bobo VR like thing on the back. But anyways, like I was able to assemble this, epoxy it all in one night. So I'm sure that the Bigscreen one that comes out, it better be at least as comfortable with this, because the Bigscreen Beyond is like easy to support. It's a light device. You have these two ends. Anyways, if you're excited for the audio strap from Bigscreen, like I hope they do a good job with it. I'm sure they will. I'm sure the audio quality is not going to be quite as good, but who knows? I'd love to be surprised. I do have one on order, by the way. But yeah, this audio solution is totally baller. There's no latency. There's no like Bluetooth to worry about. I was using some over-the-ear headphones, some off-ear bone conducting headphones, and there was a little bit of latency with that. Not a big deal, but these are like instant, and I love it. It's freaking cool. And it is cool to have built something so custom. Not that I designed this one, but it's a really cool device. And anyways, those are my thoughts on the Bigscreen Beyond. And if you're interested in picking yours up, go check out Bigscreen online. I'm sure they'd be happy to have your order. But those are my thoughts, and we'll see you on the next video.